Welcome into the latest episode of Mac and Mose. Andy McNamara, joined by the editor-in-chief of GoDucks.com, Rob Mosley. We are here actually in the Founders Club of Matthew Knight Arena taping our episode today, a little bit of a fireside chat, if you will. We are here to preview Oregon's season opener against the UC Davis Aggies of the Big Sky Conference. A lot of buzz around town this week, obviously, as football season is finally upon us. And this is always sort of a tricky game. I won't say every year because they don't always play an FCS opponent, but last year it was Eastern Washington to start the season. This year it's UC Davis. You spoke with some players this week about it and what the mindset is for both teams going into this. And for Oregon, they can't afford to overlook UC Davis because for UC Davis, they have nothing to lose. It's a really tricky game for both sides.
Yeah, there's some guys with good perspective on this. Most importantly, perhaps, Dakota Prukop, a guy who is an FCS transfer himself and has played in games against FBS level teams and knows how fired up an FCS team is. Zach Morgan, another graduate transfer from the FCS level, didn't play an FBS opponent, but knows the chip on his shoulder a program like that would have going into a matchup like this. So, early on, I think you got to expect Davis is going to throw everything they got at Oregon. I get the sense the Ducks are preparing for a Boise State type challenge in terms of an offense that shifts a lot, uses a lot of motion, tries to confuse you. So it's going to be a good test for Brady Hoke and this new defense. Can guys get lined up and get in the right spot and do their job and stop this team like you'd expect them to? And then on the other side of the ball, Dakota Prukop, who is a real intense guy, making his debut in his only season for the Ducks. Can he keep himself calm enough and quiet his nerves enough to play under control and get the offense moving, get the ball into the hands of the skill players and get the offense rolling?
This is always for me, an interesting week for Oregon because you have 3 full weeks of what is considered fall camp to start the month of August, and then a day off where the coaches kind of sort through all of the scrimmage film and then decide the depth chart, and then boom, you're right into game week. You have scout teams. The way practices are run is a little bit different. They get a bonus day heading into this week one. They had a practice last Saturday, so really 5 full practices instead of the normal 4 on a game week. And admittedly, I found myself this week watching the defense probably more than anything else. And part of that is just with the playmakers on the offensive side of the ball for Oregon. I expect that I guess expect them to execute. The defense is really an unknown, a brand new coordinator, a lot of new faces. Troy Dye, a true freshman, is slated to start at linebacker. I mean, we have not seen. I'd have to go back. I'm sure it's happened, but when was the last time that a true freshman started on the front 7 for the Oregon Ducks in the first game of the year?
Yeah.
As the season wears on and guys get some experience and injuries happen and that sort of thing, obviously it's not that unexpected to see a freshman play.
Yeah, Michael Clay played himself into the rotation.
Exactly.
I think he's a true freshman.
And on special teams, you'll see true freshmen every year playing in the first game. But in this case, Troy Dye is going to probably be out there on kickoff to start.
Right.
And then boom, he's right in the fire. And it can be a little stressful maybe for fans and coaches probably, and hopefully not the player himself. But at the same time, it's tremendous to see maybe a younger defense getting meaningful reps this early, and hopefully it'll be the start of something big.
Yeah, I mean, guys like A.J. Hotchkins, junior college transfer at the middle linebacker spot. You got Juwan Williams, who played some football last year, but was just starting to come into his own, and I think it was his first start of the year last year where he got hurt and missed the rest of the year. Ugo Amadi was kind of in and out last year. This defense really needs to click and build up some chemistry and get some confidence rolling heading into the later part of the season. So this is a great chance for them to kind of figure out who they are. Again, hopefully build some confidence, get some butterflies out. There's a lot of belief. I can't overstress enough how much belief there is from the players in Brady Hoke's defense. And they really think they've got something dialed up special for this season. But it's another thing to have to put it into action. And now they got to back it up with how they play. So I'm sure they're really excited to do so. And everybody who watched this team the last couple of years saw some of the slippage on defense, wants to see this get back to being an Oregon defense of old, which is maybe not be the classic shutdown 3-and-out every time defense, but getting turnovers, getting off the field, making stops, and letting this offense just boat race people.
I think the defense is going to simplify things based on what we've seen so far. Not as much maybe verbal communication between players.
One of my favorite moments from this preseason camp is overhearing Brady Hoke at one point yell at a guy, "Stop talking and get lined up." Where it seemed like the last couple of years you'd see cases where guys right up to the snap are trying to communicate something or signal something or adjust to something. He said, "Stop talking and get lined up." So he's clearly streamlined things. We don't know exactly what they've done, but it's clear from that they're doing less of that.
Yeah, you hit on it too. The players truly buy in. I had a chance to spend some time with Johnny Reagan at Pac-12 Media Day back in July. And one of the things I always like to do with the players that we bring there is ask them, what new guys look good, how is off-season workouts going? Because at that point, they're just working out with themselves. There's no coaches around. And so you really get a player's perspective. And, Johnny wasn't bashful. He was predicting shutouts for this defense, and I was like, whoa,
right.
Let's
that'd be great.
one foot in front of the other.
Right.
But that's the type of enthusiasm that you want to see from players. You want them to believe that they're gonna lock teams down. And he's another guy. He's a veteran, but will be a first-year starter at will linebacker. And you were mentioning to me yesterday, that he's in a position on the field where he can make a ton of plays.
Yeah. Johnny's going to get himself in the right position. He's just going to have to finish tackles, and if he can do that, he can be a guy that leads this team in tackles. I think Juwan Williams is another guy like that. These are guys that from their personality and how they handle themselves and the way their coaches talk about them, they're going to get themselves in the right position. They know their assignments. But, to that point, okay, here's a chance now. This is a real game against an opponent. You don't know what they're going to be doing. You got to go in and finish those plays. Now you got to prove it. Now you got to back it up. So, again, I think with everything with everything that's on the line and everything that's different, it is nice to have this level of opponent coming in where you can try some things, where you can work some things out. All respect to UC Davis. They're going to be game, as we talked about, but I think this is going to be a good jumping off point, hopefully, for this defense.
Well, let's switch over to the offensive side of the ball for Oregon. Coming into this one, Dakota Prukop getting his first start at quarterback. Zach Morgan, who you talked about, another senior transfer. Those two guys are two of the four most experienced guys on the entire roster in terms of starts. College football starts, not maybe at Oregon or at the FBS level, but guys that have played a lot of football. Cameron Hunt actually is the leader in the clubhouse, if you will, as to the most experienced player on this team as a starter. All offensive guys. So this is a unit that I think, even with some new faces, brings a ton of experience, a lot of playmakers. Royce Freeman, you could just tell the last 10 days or so, the end of fall camp and then the first week of practice, I think he's ready to hit somebody.
Yeah.
And Royce is a real chill guy. He's soft-spoken. He's not an aggressive sort of alpha guy at all when you talk to him, but they haven't necessarily been giving Royce a ton of touches in practice.
Right.
And, just to save some wear and tear on his body, because he plays one of the most brutal positions that you can play in all of football. But he's ready now. It's like, he does not like getting subbed out even in practice for meaningful reps. And he took it easy on Brendan Schooler in practice the other day. It was just I guess what they call thud, so it wasn't tackling to the ground or anything like that. But he let up just at the last second. He still put Schooler on his back, but he could have completely destroyed him. So it's I'm excited to see Royce play. If things go as hopefully they will for the Ducks, he won't have to play a ton.
Right.
But I think all of those guys are going to get meaningful minutes in the first half, and as long as it takes to maybe get a lead that they're comfortable with.
Yeah, you'd like to see him get 10 carries, 90 yards, and a couple touchdowns by halftime, and then be able to shut it down. There's a lot of ability behind him. Kenai Benoit, Taj Griffin, Tony Brooks-James. Those are guys we talk about. They have versatile skill sets, different kind of guys that maybe could be used in different situations. But Gary Campbell's kind of prone to just saying, hey, you're my number one, you're my number two in all situations regardless. So all those guys are going to get a chance to earn more carries later in this season, probably with how they perform this week against UC Davis. But Royce is kind of a safety valve. We can talk about whatever other questions and concerns and unknowns there are. When you're starting with Royce Freeman running behind an offensive line that, while young, these guys have a lot of confidence in, that's a great place to start, and it sets your mind at ease a little bit that they're going to be able to move the ball. Then when you've got Charles Nelson and Darren Carrington and Pharaoh Brown making his return, there's places for Prukop to get the ball too in the hands of playmakers and not feel like he has to do too much. So how they distribute touches will be really interesting to see Saturday.
Well, you touched on Prukop, and just to give you some numbers, because you have to think he's going to be fairly comfortable going up against UC Davis, a team in the Big Sky, as is Montana State, where he came from. So 2 years ago, as a sophomore at Montana State, 17 of 22 for 361 passing yards. That's 361 yards on 17 completions, 4 touchdowns. Ran for another 140 plus and 2 more touchdowns. So over 500 yards of total offense, 6 touchdowns. Montana State put 77 on UC Davis on that afternoon. So, at least from a first game with Oregon, you have to think he's going to be confident. He's super intense. We've seen that all along. I don't think fans really, know quite what to expect maybe, but if you just look at the pedigree, if you look at his resume, this is a guy that was a first-team All-American last year on a team with a losing record. So, that tells me, there's something about him when the lights go on that clearly the coaching staff liked, several coaching staffs around the country liked, because he had several offers to leave Montana State to go to Power 5 schools, and he chose Oregon. So real excited to see what he can do. As you say, Rob, really his main responsibility is getting the ball in the hands of the guys to make plays. One of the reasons why he was the number one really from start to finish in the entire offseason at the quarterback depth chart was, he's a guy that I don't want to say he's conservative, but he just doesn't make dumb mistakes. Right. He doesn't try to do something that isn't there. Right. He's not going to just chuck a ball, hoping that a guy catches it.
Seemed like Vernon Adams did that. Somehow his guy always caught it.
Yeah,
but a dramatically different kind of player.
Adams, he is the exception to the rule. Yeah. But there are very few people that have that magic wand like Vernon had. But I think there's a trust level between the coaching staff and Dakota, and really we've seen it a little bit too between Dakota and his teammates to make plays. And you also mentioned Pharaoh Brown. I'm real excited to see him get back, and what a valuable weapon for any quarterback to have, but especially a guy making his first start for Oregon.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a pretty emotional moment. When he gets introduced, when he comes in, when Pharaoh makes a catch. I think the feedback from the fans should be pretty great. Back to Dakota, if we're back to predicting numbers like I did for Royce, I want to see him go like 17 to 21, because everything's pretty short, 5 to 8 yards. He's getting it to the right guy, and then that guy's getting a ton of yards after the catch. His efficiency in the preseason, as you mentioned, is what separated him. The other thing that separated him is tempo, and we noted it from about the end of the first week, start of the second week of camp. Just things went faster when Dakota was the quarterback compared to everybody else. And all the other guys are young, so that's not necessarily surprising. But, I think something that got a little bit lost with Vernon is because he came so late, and so his knowledge of the playbook might not have been as deep as Dakota's, who's been here since January. I think Dakota's going to be able to play a lot quicker. So you're going to see elements, sort of classic elements of the new Oregon offense, tempo, a running quarterback, will be much bigger elements again this year than they were last year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll see the return of the read option that Oregon was able to run so effectively that really just didn't exist with a quarterback like Vernon Adams, who, while was Houdini with his feet in terms of escaping the pass rush, just wasn't a downfield runner at all. And Prukop is a guy that that he scored double-digit touchdowns himself the past 2 years. So he's not afraid to run the ball. He protects himself well. He's not as thick as Masoli, but he reminds me of Jeremiah Masoli a little bit in just the way he runs more like a running back, I guess you could say. So you're not like, when Marcus ran the ball, you're like, please slide, please slide. Yeah. Whereas Dakota, he just moves his body in a way that is more natural, I think, for a ball carrier when they're running down the field. So that will be, it should be a lot of fun to watch. This game is going to be on Pac-12 networks. It's a 2 o'clock broadcast start. 2:07 is the kickoff at Autzen Stadium. And when it's all said and done, we'll wrap it up, and hopefully we have lots of exciting highlights and numbers to share with you. So until then, for Rob Mosley, Andy McNamara, go Ducks.